So, Mishall is a PhD candidate in the Department of Politics at York University. Her research focuses on the use and applications of artificial intelligence and machine learning in North America immigration processes. Her research is funded by the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council Canada Graduate Scholarship and the Provost Dissertation Scholarship. She's interested in the challenges posed by the proliferation of AI in everyday life, the gendered and radicalized effects of automation in immigration processes, and the political economy of the techno-scientific innovations.
Hi everyone, my name is Mishall Lallani. I'm a PhD candidate in the Department of Political Science at York University. Um, and the topic of my little workshop talk is Human Rights for AI, a question of method, design, or application. So we'll get right into it. So split our brief conversation into three parts, method, design, and application. Human rights being the center of my talk today, it's important to understand the complexities of its relationship to each of these three processes. So first up, we have method. When I speak of method, I'm speaking to the actions taken right before the technological and kind of research programs that are put into work, or at least drafted on a larger scale. So methodological thinking often begins with an inquiry or problematic that needs solving or unraveling or investigating at the very least. But what often we fail to take into account as researchers is our own positionality to the topic of AI, its impact, the community that it's impacting, and our own relationship to the preferred outcomes of said research and or inquiry. So most importantly, I bring into question, what is our relationship to power? Does our positionality or social location inflect itself into our work and theoretical considerations in a way that seeks to center harm mitigation, or simply does it extend existing programs of power vis-a-vis technological advancements in AI? So in this little illustration, you'll see that there's positionalities, there's stakeholders, there's community impact and theoretical considerations, all all kind of orbiting power, and also having, multi-directional kind of exchanges with each other. So turning our attention to the relationship between impacted communities and stakeholders to frameworks of human rights. Now, of course, these relationships between the two will always be differential. Both community members and stakeholders have, of course, differing priorities, and these are in no way unidirectional or linear in any way. So something to keep in mind when we think about the ways we begin the process of innovation in AI. So an example of this is the convergence of the public sphere and private sphere, especially in relation to the private industry of AI. So in the contemporary era, the introduction of private sphere technologies is converging with public governance needs. And this can present quite a few impasses. My own research is on the Canadian use of AI in immigration, specifically in determining or assessing the risk of humanitarian applications. So using that as an example, for the IRCC, the adoption of AI systems is a response to backlog, speeding up administrative turnarounds, surveillance, and of course, further securitization of immigration programming and kind of subverting or avoiding human error. However, on the other hand, for community participants that I had the privilege of speaking to, for human rights activists, lawyers, grassroots organizations in the migration space, and of course humanitarian applicants, the adoption of AI systems along the current axes of humanitarian programs means the further exacerbation of bias, the chance of erroneous denial, human rights violations, fear of electrical failures in their host nations or wherever they're applying from, and of course, unequal power dynamics between applicant and host countries. So more questions then appear in relation to this, such as the applicability of a universal human rights framework versus the locale of politics, collective rights, and of course, safeguarding the rights and interests of impacted community members. And then, of course, whose labor is a part of the design of these processes as well. To what end is innovation taking place? Is it for profit or is it for the advancement and enforcement of human rights schemas? And can the two be reconciled? Now, we can think of possible solutions, which also unfortunately come in the form of more questions being, uh, can participatory data collection aid and abet this? We had a very interesting talk just before mine about, ethical data annotation. Um, can participation or kind of the embedding of ethics in technical research paradigms dismantle the differential power relations to AI programs? And can these cement a rights-based foundation to become a binding source of justice? So again, what binding mechanisms do we have, and what enforcement mechanisms do we have at present? And are these available to all stakeholders and community participants? So moving on to design. So central to this particular process is who is the designer. Within the design process, politics are seldom a topic of discussion, as there's a sense of like corporate neutrality and or this, innovation mission statement that seeks to thrust us into an apolitical futurity that is better than what we've known before. So it's very, motivating in a sense, but kind of detached from realities and concerns today. So, simply looking into, I guess, the geographical concentration of the design teams, design heads, the creative directors, and the like, and then looking at the offshoring of like, the less fantastical parts of innovation, such as cobalt mining in the DRC and other resource extraction that takes place in Global South, bring to the fore the duality of human rights schemas and their applicability. Then there's also the question of what forms of knowledge is being used in innovation schemas, the datafication process, and who is at the helm of both teaching and harvesting of such information. The goal here would be to ensure that human rights frameworks be embedded within the design process that ensures safe working conditions on both ends, not just for the design team that's concentrated in the global north, but also the global south. Fair wage systems, and of course, equal opportunities to form and access educational training systems that make AI design possible. But again, geopolitical concentrations play an important role in this, where not only are current leaders in AI development not politically neutral, but they are also not incentivized to develop and adopt human rights frameworks, specifically when it comes to the development of automated weaponry. We're moving on to application. The center of this portion of the talk is whether or not human rights apply on a universal plane. So where are these programs, technologies, and such being operationalized? So I guess the question then is, who wields the application? By which I mean there is a clear dichotomy along global north and global south, which designates one party as thinker, innovator, and leader, so the Steve Jobs of the world, and designates the other as, receiving subject and or user, miner, ghost laborer, doing the click work or the gig economy of AI as they've formed around the world. And, the hopeful of us would ask, what are the next steps then for regulatory bodies in the international relations space that can designate some kind of harm mitigation programs using a human rights framework. However, international relations and politics often complicate such missions and make us think if human rights can even be applied to the diverse geopolitical locales upon which and against which applications may often take place. So, as I'm sure many of you have noticed, that much of this workshop has been a series of guided questioning and meant to complicate the linearity of geopolitical terrains by asking who these tools are for, who has access to them, what drives its use and misuse, what structures are in place to prevent unequal iterations of technological advancement, the same way we tend to say biological weapons, for example. My goal, of course, is to implicate each stage of thinking, learning, teaching, design, and application stages of AI to commit to multi-directional, intersectional, and inclusionary understandings of human rights, and of course, rights rights-based schemas as they would be found in their local settings. And each of which brings me to understand that human rights work in the AI industry is and will be constant. It will have to be fluid, and it will, of course, be transformative. Thank you for your time, and if you'd like to connect with me, there are a few ways you can connect to me, and I look forward to chatting with you all.